I might have that look where people are gonna be like, you're gonna die at 25, you know?
He doesn't have blood work indicative of somebody who's gonna die at 25. More so like 50.
I always imagined myself in like 30 years from now.
30 years from now, he's not gonna be alive. Coach Greg, in today's video, the video you've been waiting for, Genetic Anomaly, shows us his blood work, and we're going to go over it and tell you exactly how bad it really is. And so the video is called, I Ruined My Health at 20 Years of Age. How does bro look 28 when he's only 20? He's 20. This is shocking. And when you see his physique, it's larger than life. He's huge. We're going to go over this video. We're going to go over his blood work and tell you all the things that have gone wrong. And remember, your brain doesn't finish developing until you're 25. And so the blood work, it's not going to show that his brain has stopped developing. Although he says it in his own words in multiple videos that he's killing his brain cells. And so he knows it. It's literally making him dumber, but not as dumb as continuing to abuse steroids. He isn't done. He's merely just getting started. This is after 2 years of use. Bro is only 20. Greg is already recording a whole Netflix documentary about the title alone. Code Greg 15% off. Greg already cooking up his 1 in a million response. There's a 1 in a million chance that he can abuse steroids like this and have positive blood work. 1 in a million. Pretty solid blood work, to be honest. Okay, yeah, it's such great, solid blood work. I mean, he's 20 years old and my blood work is significantly better. And I abused steroids for 10 years, but his blood work is great. Oh, nothing to concern yourself with. These guys are on so much copium, you'd swear there was a 90% off discount on the stuff. Like, this is ridiculous. It's not good blood work.
And you need to actually monitor that stuff, because when things go out of the range and your markers aren't in line to what they are supposed to be, that's when things start getting bad.
I'm great to see the Genetic Anomaly is cognizant of the importance of getting regular blood work done. He's open and honest. He's transparent. He's saying, I abuse steroids. I know that it's dangerous, but I'm getting my blood work taken to mitigate the damages. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is at least somewhat healthy, somewhat safe, because if you take too much or your genetics are poor, you can suffer more damages than perhaps someone else. Just because it's safe for one person to take said dose doesn't mean it's safe for you. Now, if you do want to get your blood work taken, I strongly suggest you go and visit AlgoRx. You can click the link in the description, use code Greg for 10% off. They not only can go over your blood work for very cheap prices, about half of Merrick Health, but they can also prescribe to you various medications. For example, do you have high blood pressure? They can give you telmisartan. Do you have lower levels of testosterone? You can get enclomiphene. Do you have an insatiable appetite? You're trying to lose weight? Do you have type 2 diabetes? Do you need to take a semaglutide, perhaps terzipatide? Well, if you're looking for doctor-prescribed medications without the gatekeeping, click the link in the description. AlgoRx, strongly recommended. Very cheap. And remember, it's pharmaceutical grade. It's not from some shady SARMs website. It's prescription medications.
You're kind of just taking years off your life when you have shit blood work. And you can easily prevent it if you just watch your health and do your blood work every few months, you know.
A personal note from myself is when I was younger, I often would avoid getting my blood work taken while I was abusing performance-enhancing drugs. Mostly, I would just take it after. When I was off the steroids or perhaps just on HRT doses, but I did take it a few times while blasting test, tren, and so on, and it wasn't good. My HDL cholesterol was in the toilet. I was prescribed a statin. My liver enzymes were through the roof. It isn't good. Now, one thing that I'm happy that I did was eventually I stopped. Now I'm on 140 milligrams of testosterone a week. My blood work is immaculate. But I got lucky. If I would have had poor genetics, or perhaps if I'd continued, perhaps I'd already no longer be with us.
Let's say I did like 4 months of getting huge, you know, a proper off-season. After that off-season, my body's gonna be demolished. Like my mental health, my physical health, they're gonna be put through a lot.
And so he admits it. he's on very high doses, blasting, for example, for 4 months. And after that time, he has to go on lower doses in order to get his body back to normal. I asked him, what exactly are your doses right now? Previously thought that he was off. And by off, I mean not taking performance-enhancing drugs. When you go completely off, it takes approximately 5 or 6 weeks to return back to baseline. A week or 2 after you stop blasting, you still have super physiological doses of testosterone and so on, and so you still feel very good. But once that clears out of your system, you start to lose your energy and you start to lose a shit ton of muscle. Now, Sven, the genetic anomaly, he's still on 250 milligrams of testosterone a week. That's his off. And so his off is approximately double my on. And so this is the best his blood work could ever become. When he's lowered the doses and aka cruising on minimal gear. And at 250 milligrams, that is not HRT, that is a low dose cycle of testosterone.
Bodybuilding in general is not healthy. But we choose to do this because it's something that we love doing and it's something that gives us purpose, at least for me.
If you love it that much, can't you love it enough to do it without abusing steroids? If you really love something, why do you need drugs to make it fun? When you use steroids, you're going to gain perhaps double, triple, 5 times more muscle. And so obviously it makes it more fun. But why can't you do it without it? I mean, if you love baseball, can't you watch a baseball game without betting on it? And so if you have to use drugs, it's analogous to having to gamble in order to make it more fun. Of course, you're going to like it more when you're putting on that much more muscle. But why not wait? At least wait until you're 25. Bro is only 20. Brain isn't finished developing, and so you can do it natural. And of course, if you get to a plateau and you're younger, you can use things like Turk Builder Max, Turk Platinum. That's going to build more muscle, give you more recovery, more energy, and still allow you to be natural, still allow you to be healthy. And so if you're on the fence of using steroids, please wait.
When I started gear, I didn't go into gear like I only have one life. I don't care what happens. I always imagined myself in like 30 years from now.
30 years from now, he's not going to be alive. Damn! That is the problem. If he continues to do what he's doing for 30 years, most likely he's not going to be alive. And if he is, he's lucky. But at that point, he'll have to stop. You can't do this forever. And so at some point in time, he's going to have to go off. And so why not do it right now?
And I always watched my blood work. Every single year, my blood work has been good. We'll look over that, see how it is. I haven't actually looked at it, so we're going to look at it together.
And so notice, he hasn't looked at his blood work yet, but yet he's saying it's always healthy. Who is the person that's telling you that it's healthy? Is it Coach Greg? Is it your best friend? Is it your doctor? Is it your bodybuilding coach? Because if it's your bodybuilding coach, they're most likely going to tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. They're going to say, yeah, it's not bad compared to other bodybuilders. This is actually pretty healthy. You shouldn't be comparing your blood work to other people who use steroids. You should be comparing your blood work to other people who are healthy, who aren't using steroids.
This is a massive problem.
One thing you also need to understand is many people, they don't see this. They think, well, I'll just die perhaps 10 or 20 years younger. And they're thinking, well, why would I want to live to be 70 anyway? Well, what is the point? It's not just the quantity of life, it's also your quality of life. Don't you want to have the maximum out of good years left on this earth? It's not just living to be 100, but living as long as possible while also maximizing the time you have on this earth.
I think this is one of the best pumps of my life. And what's crazy is I haven't started my butt. I haven't started the cycle.
He's looking like this, but he's not natural here. He's on 250 milligrams of test a week. And so imagine if I doubled my testosterone, doubled it, and stopped racing on the bike. Don't you think my chest would be more massive than last time? I would be more pumped, more swollen. And so although he's off steroids, he's technically still on. What do you think would happen to his muscles if he actually went off? Do you think he has some polymorphic fissure that allows him to keep all of his muscle? I'm making words up, people. It doesn't exist. There's no polymorphic fissure that allows you to build all this muscle and keep it after you go up. His muscles would shrink. He would have no energy, low libido. I watched his previous video. They were talking about his ability to have sexy time, that he's still able to get harder than last time.
Your downstairs area doesn't work.
But that always works.
And I was thinking, wow, that's pretty impressive. He's off steroids and he can still do that. But I come to find out, remember, he told me himself he's on 250 milligrams. And so, of course, it's still working. But what happens when he stops? And stop, he should. He perhaps doesn't need to go off completely. He could just use HRT, but he needs to lower his doses. Do you think he's going to do that? Or do you think he's soon going to go on a heavy blast and get way worse blood work than last time? Why can't he stop right now? The Rock, can we not learn from him? Why don't people stop right now? I think it's because people get addicted to the dopamine, not from the steroids itself, but from the compliments, the money, the fame of having a physique such as this. He loves bodybuilding. He wants to be a champion, yet has he even competed in the last, I don't know, 2 years? He hasn't even been competing. Does he really love bodybuilding if he isn't competing? And perhaps he has body dysmorphia. He thinks he's smaller than he really is. And so he can't go off. And so young people, they also have a sense of, it can't happen to me. That's those people. The people who die from taking steroids or get strokes and so on, they probably have some weird genetics. They probably have a disadvantage, but that won't happen to me. That is the mindset of most people when they're young. But when you're older, for example, you're Coach Greg's age, you realize that bad things can happen to anyone. And so I caution you, don't start using steroids if you haven't already. And if you did, you're still allowed to stop. Perhaps you can't stop completely, but at least go on HRT monitored by a doctor.
Now I might have that look where people are going to be like, you're going to die at 25, you know? So that is simulating that my blood work is shit.
He doesn't have blood work indicative of somebody who's going to die at 25. More so like 50. I say he's not going to die at 25. By that, I mean, most likely he's not going to die at 25, but anything could happen. He could get bad batch of steroids. He could get a staph infection. There's a whole host of things that can happen. But I want you to stop thinking about it just shortening your life. It's not just shortening your life, it's shortening your quality of life. And so there are things you can do to mitigate the damages. For example, eating healthy, not being morbidly obese, wearing a CPAP machine. Because if you look at Sven, he's very, very huge. He's got a thick neck. And so he could have sleep apnea or other obstructive airway disorders that can significantly impair your ability to recover and make it harder to function during the day. It shortens your life, but not just shortens it, it makes the time you have on this earth of lower quality. And that is not something that you want.
Okay, we're finally gonna see my blood work. I think pretty much everything seems to be in range.
No. How does he think that? And so when he says everything is within range, is he on an extra dose of copium? And so first of all, your hemoglobin is out of range. It's not within the normal range. And what that does, it has an increased risk of stroke. If you get a stroke, it blocks blood flow to that special part of your body. If it happens in your brain, part of your brain dies. This could result in permanent cognitive and motor deficits, as in you wouldn't be able to think the same or move the same. Now, it's not just your hemoglobin that's elevated that causes this, but having increased androgens, sex hormones, testosterone, and so on, increases the formation of clots in your body. And so what happens is you can develop a thrombus, which is that moving clot throughout your body, and it gets clogged. Think of it as being like a thrombone, a thrombus. It's going through your arteries, and eventually the artery, it gets smaller and it gets stuck. When it gets stuck, the blood flow can't go through it, and that part of the body, it dies. That is a stroke. That is what you're increasing your risk for. And so if you understand these things, you might then think twice about doing it. If you're just like, oh, I don't want to get gyno, I don't lose my hair and some acne, whatever, maybe I'll get a heart attack when I'm 50. It isn't just that. It isn't just you're dying a little bit sooner. You're getting a stroke, you can't think properly. You're in a wheelchair, you're perhaps a vegetable. People are feeding you, wiping your ass. Is this something that you want? For his cholesterol, he didn't get an ApoB test, but you could in fact get this at AlgoRx. This is the #1 test to actually determine your risk for cholesterol and so on. But he has some markers listed. And so let's talk about those. He has very low HDL, the good cholesterol, and normal LDL, the bad cholesterol. And so if you're wondering how low, it's half of the minimum cutoff. And so if it should be 1, he's at 0.5. And so cholesterols are circles. And so what he has is a large number of the LDL. These are smaller circle cholesterols. In comparison to the HDL, it's larger circle cholesterols. These flow throughout your body in your blood vessels, okay? These are very easy to get stuck into your blood vessels and form plaques or calcification. These are very big and they're not going to get stuck on the side. Think of your arteries as like a river. The river, the water is flowing through like the blood, and some of these are going to get trapped on the side. Oh, I got stuck. You have this large river. This one has now gotten stuck. Oh, that sucks. It's not that bad because look, there's still a lot of river. But imagine that this happens over and over and over again throughout the years, perhaps 30 years. It's starting to close off. Continue to add these. And so remember, if your heart vessel is full of these and eventually a thrombus comes through and blocks it, you now have a heart attack. And so because of his lower number of the HDL cholesterol, the bigger ones, he still has plenty of the smaller, more dangerous, smaller ones, the smaller LDL cholesterol. And so over the years, if this continues, it's going to continue to deposit within the artery, continue to increase the blockage, and eventually it's not going to end well. And so if you have these markers, you could, for example, be prescribed ezetimibe. I perhaps am mispronouncing it wrong. Ezetimibe. It's tough to pronounce. You can get it Algar-X, then the next line of defense could be, for example, a statin. But just because you're using these medications don't mean you have no problems whatsoever. It would be like saying, oh, I don't have high blood pressure because I'm on telmisartan. Those are Band-Aid fixes. And so the real problems is being on steroids or being overweight. And I'm not talking about just body fat. If you're overweight, as in you're too heavy, your BMI is close to 40, it's going to play havoc on your health. Next, his prolactin, it's very low, and so I would guess he's likely on cabergoline or pramipixole, likely from taking tren in previous months, and he's trying to control it. He's also previously had gynecomastia surgery as recently as several weeks ago. Perhaps in the past he was taking Nolvadex or Arimidex or Femara, which is letrozole, to reduce the estrogenic effects of taking a lot of testosterone, which convert to estrogen. Now, his estrogen levels right now are very, very high, but that's most likely because his testosterone is very high. Higher levels of test going to convert to estrogen. And so if you have testosterone levels through the roof, which he does, you're also going to have more estrogen. In case you're wondering, taking cabergoline, some of the side effects can be strange impulse control. For example, people develop gambling. There's people with strange sexy time addictions. And so you need to be careful. Now, of course, you don't want to get side effects from taking tren. You don't want to get gyno and so on. But sometimes the medications you take to offset these also present a problem. Now, his testosterone levels are almost or perhaps above 2 times the optimal level of normal. Is he trying not to go on a health cycle? Bro couldn't even train for a month, perhaps 5 weeks. And so why was he taking so much testosterone? How do you know if your HRT dose is too high? For example, mine is 140. How do you know that mine is not too high? Many people, they can only take 100. My estradiol levels are within normal ranges. And so if your estradiol levels are above the normal reference range, likely means you're on too much testosterone. And so in that case, should lower your testosterone. You know what else that would do? Probably raise his HDL, the good cholesterol of which we talked about. And so if Sven in his off season were to do half of its current dose, 125 instead of 250, I most certainly believe that his blood work would be that much better. And so why are we on abusive doses of testosterone during our health phase? Most bodybuilders who go, for example, on 4 months of abusive cycles, you're going to have to go off for 4 months in order to recover. But if you're on 250 milligrams, you're not recovering. Does that make sense?
Don't know what this means. If you guys know, comment down below. But my FSH is low. My LH is low.
Just for the average person out there, he says, my FSH and LH is low. I don't know what that is. When you're on performance-enhancing drugs, he's on 250 milligrams of test, FSH and LH, it goes down. And so that test, it's utterly useless because you know it's going to be in the toilet. And so when people say, oh, how do you know he's a fake natty? If your LH and FSH are both in the toilet, you're on exogenous testosterone, you're on steroids, you're on SARMs, you're on something that's suppressing LH and FSH. And if it's all in the normal range, you can't be taking steroids. If you were and had normal LH and FSH, it wouldn't make any sense. And no, you can't just take lower doses. If you're on low dose HRT, like I am, my FSH and LH are in the toilet because my body doesn't need to produce testosterone. I'm getting exogenously from outside my body.
Follicle stimulating hormone.
What is that?
My
Perk!
hairline. Follicles.
Really?
Hair follicles.
And so, Sven, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, has nothing to do with your hair follicles. It's not that. It actually has to do with your Sertoli cells in your testes. I mean, doesn't everyone know about the Sertoli cells? He probably has obstructive sleep apnea. And remember, blood work doesn't say everything. One thing that perhaps is even more important than blood work is blood pressure. If you don't have your blood pressure, that is a silent killer. You don't know anything's happening. He could have blood pressure 180 over 110 and not even realize it. And so you need to get your blood pressure. And remember, if you have obstructive sleep apnea and you can correct it, it's going to reduce your blood pressure. And so it's very, very important. Remember, blood pressure, it's the first thing you should be looking for. Anyone can get it. You can go to a checkout counter at a health store. They have those machines. You get your blood pressure done. And if it's high, and by high I mean if it's even over 130 over 85, I would start to be concerned. Many people are thinking, oh, if it's not 150 over 100, it's no big deal. It's only high by a little bit. A little bit in terms of blood pressure is a lot. Next, most likely Sven already has an enlarged heart, left ventricular hypertrophy, which is going to take years off of his life. This can lead to early heart failure, and so you need to be careful. And so to determine this, he would need an EKG and a chest x-ray. And so although blood work is good, it's just a start. The blood pressure, the blood work, the EKG, the chest x-ray, these are things that he's going to need to test to see if he truly is healthy. Next, when Sven is bigger, a little bit more fuller than last time, blasting heavy cycles of gear, it seems as if he speaks in shorter sentences. It seems like he's out of breath. You often see this amongst bigger, larger competitors, for example, Sam Sulek or other professional bodybuilders, IPB pros. This could be indicative of HFmef. This is a form of heart failure with medium ejection fraction. And so, guys, be careful. And at AlgoRx, they understand all this. They understand the dangers of bodybuilding, taking performance-enhancing drugs. And so oftentimes they can and will prescribe telmisartan, as this can reduce cardiac remodeling, for example, the left ventricular hypertrophy and so on. And so if you're interested in being healthier than last time, you want to know how you're doing, you want doctors that care, that understand how to read their blood work, AlgoRx. And so, Sven, do you now understand about your blood work? All these years you're thinking my blood work is immaculate. Let me remind you, this is his best blood work. This is while am I doing the bird hands? What am I doing? This is his best blood work while only on 250 milligrams of test a week. And by only, I mean double what he should be on for HRT doses. And so imagine when he adds back in perhaps 500 milligrams of test, 500 milligrams of EQ, whatever he's doing. Imagine he adds back in some tren. Gotta be careful. It's only going to get worse. And so I would love to see his blood work once he goes back on. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm. Please like the video if you liked it. Hopefully you learned something from this. If you're using steroids, please stop or reduce the doses. And if you haven't gone on it yet, don't start. Watch one of those two videos. Don't forget about Turk Platinum and Turk Builder Max, as well as GO2 Max and all the supplements at HDLT Supplements. Code Greg 15% off. I also have the cookbook, the training book, coaching plans by me and my team. And until next time, I am out.